Then I'd like to call Mr. Karma Bhutia, founder and CEO Ashipo. Karma. Mayank Mittal, Director Qualtrics. Pankaj Mishra, co-founder Factor Daily. And Vinay Dora, founder Crowd Product.
Okay, everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon, yes. Thanks. Okay, good. Thanks for being here for the last panel. I'm very happy that the organizers have kept the best speakers for the end of the day. Not just joking, no offense to the earlier speakers as well. My name is Madan. I'm from Your Story. I'm also a big fan of crowdsourcing. I've crowdsourced a lot of the content of two of my earlier books. One is on Indian proverbs and one is on proverbs for startups and entrepreneurs. They're also available as apps. So you can see the power of the crowd. Anybody with an app can get access to wisdom of people from around the world on these kinds of crowdsourced applications. Anyway, we have four excellent panelists here with us who will give us a deep dive into case studies of how you do actually crowdsourcing for your kind of ideas, visions, how to make it all come true and so on. So we heard some very good stories from the earlier panels. Let's hear more from our speakers over here today. I'm sitting on my left Karma Bhutia, who's the founder and CEO of iShippo, and let me ask Karma to get the ball rolling with his own story of how did he start his company and how is he using crowdsourcing to build his property. And if you have time, I also want to tell us a little bit about a very interesting event he's organizing afterwards called the Sikkim Startup Festival. For most of us in different parts of India, we don't know much about what's happening in Northeast India. So here's a very good chance for us to hear about what's happening in Northeast India. Karma, who's yours?
Thanks, Madan. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Karma. As you can see, I belong to the northeast part of the country. Briefly, iShippo is basically this platform where you can, buy, sell, design, etc. for products that are handcrafted and handmade, and also because currently with the big thrust on the Make in India kind of space with the promotion of handloom and handicraft, I think we are probably one of the players that basically play a little bit significant role in terms of the Make My India kind of the whole space around that particular slogan to kind of contribute that way. So I will, on the second level of I will have to add a couple of things that's in my mind about crowdsourcing and stuff like that. It would be good if everybody gives an introduction and I don't take too much of time. Then we can come in the second round with more questions that I can answer.
Okay, how many of you are from Bangalore? Okay, how many of you are from outside of Bangalore? I guess there's the rest of you. Anyone from outside of India? I know there's from Bangladesh, we have some random Europeans over here and so on. That's pretty good. Okay, good. Bangalore, as you all know, is one of the big startup hubs of India, and we've got a very good startup right here next to us. Vinay Dora heads a company called Crowd Product. They actually have products to help you run crowdfunding, crowdsourcing campaigns with digital dashboards and all kinds of very interesting workforce tools. I saw a very nice t-shirt a while back called May the Workforce Be With You. So maybe he can tell you, may the crowd be with you. And Vinay can tell us about what you guys do.
Sure. Hi. Thanks everyone for your time. At Crowd Product, we are trying to imbibe a lot of learnings that we have had from crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and the startup community. So we are basically a peer-driven, community-supported pitching platform with a bunch of technology tools that helps us leverage and create a better experience. So just to share a bit about the kind of tools that we have been developing in-house. One is the pitch validation tool that we've been using at a lot of meetups, conferences, where people share their ideas and get valuable feedback and insight to what they're doing. Another one is a crowd curation tool. So you'd like to get the right kind of people for your activity who can add value to what you're doing. It's a two-way engagement. And finally, we have the social data and the live video tool. So we're trying to come up with new ways to engage, to amplify, and to also connect with the larger audience who can add value. So that's what we're trying to do at Crowd Product. And we work very closely with startup founders, with the media, with ecosystem leaders, with people all over who can add value. And yeah, I'll share more in the next few rounds.
Mayank, what's your story? Mayank Mittal is Director of Politics.
Hi everyone, my name is Mayank. We run a crowdsourced software testing firm. We have developed our own platform on which we are hosting a community of close to 35,000 people who are spread across 100 countries. So what we do with them is we do crowdsourced testing of software apps, consumer apps, as well as something that we call market acceptance, wherein we do things like concept validation till user acceptance, getting feedback from real users and bringing it back to the customers. And we have been working with many startups as well as large corporate organizations now. The key benefit that we try to bring in using this solution is to get crowd wisdom, so many people working together, identify issues much faster and in much more breadth and depth. We also try to do something that we call user experience analysis, where we try to bring in feedback from users, not just in terms of how the product works, but also if it is the right product for them or not. So that is one thing which is generally missing, because you always design a product based on certain specifications and then you develop and test it also based on that. So what we try to do is at the initial stage itself and at every other stage of development, we check whether this is what the customers want or not. And this makes things faster and cheaper, so in the end it is beneficial for the customers as well as for the end users. And the participants who are there, the testers that work with, they get financial rewards, and on top of it they also get opportunities to work remotely. So a lot of people homebound, like pregnant ladies or women with young kids are getting involved increasingly in these kind of activities, and they can earn quite a bit of money. I mean, on an average, I would say 10 to 15,000 people can earn very, very easily. Of course, all 30,000 cannot do that, but there is a way in which we kind of calibrate people. We see that who are the good performers and then pay them accordingly. So there's a performance management system that is working behind.
Thanks. As you all probably know, there's a very useful term these days called minimum viable product, MVP, which is used very heavily in startup circles and also in social entrepreneurship circles. And crowdfunding, crowdsourcing perhaps is a good way to test whether you have an MVP on your hands or not. But let's hear first again now from Pankaj. Pankaj is the co-founder of Factor Daily. Pankaj, what's your story and how are you using the crowd?
I mean, we believe in the wisdom of crowds. We are not a crowdsourcing startup. So essentially, Factor Daily, we tell stories of the changes that technology is bringing. We believe in humanizing technology by capturing and telling stories, intersection of technology with everything else around us. So that's what we do at Factor Daily. And we believe in wisdom of the crowd, so that's why I'm here.
Great. Okay, so before we came together for this panel, we discussed maybe 3 or 4 discussion points. One is what is the economic impact of crowd activities? Can you put numbers on how many jobs you can create, how much employment you can create, what kinds of economic activity can be unleashed because of the power of the crowd? Second thing we discussed was smart city. There's a lot of buzz these days about smart city, and you heard examples earlier on from ride-sharing applications like Jugnu to bring about better smart transportation by using crowd techniques, etc. The third issue we talked about was regulatory challenges. I think some of that came up in the earlier panel, so we may not talk about it as much. But I want to end afterwards by asking all the speakers here to give 3 recommendations to the audience, the top 3 recommendations they have on how to use the power of the crowd. So these are some issues we'll talk about in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So let's get to the economic part of it. Maybe Karma, you can take a stab at what kinds of economic impact iShip was having and where do you see it going with the power of the crowd?
So, we being typically the e-commerce kind of player, right? So, and if you look at a typical marketplace, you see that balance that has to be there from the demand side and the supply side. Probably on one side you have the supply side, you have all the makers, craftsmen, artisans, the welfare societies, etc., that play this thing. And the other side you have basically the demand side where you're trying to drive in marketing and stuff like that, just to kind of reach the right kind of audiences who will try to buy. And both of them have an element of recommendation, So it's I recommend to you, you recommend to me, I bring in another driver. So there's that element of essential bringing the crowd. And that plays a big impact in terms of the unit, macro, and the microeconomics of the whole play as well. Because what one can bring in terms of recommendation onto, if you're a good craftsman, you bring in your family or your next of kin and say, okay, this particular guy will also be able to execute. It creates the cost of acquisition for that particular person on the supply side is reduced dramatically for the city. But for him to even recommend, he needs to trust into the brand. So there is obviously in the whole crowd thing, there's that whole currency of trust, which plays a major role. But I see it from a much more bigger perspective. So the whole game in terms of crowd, probably the biggest crowd phenomenon that has happened all over the world. In my opinion, because I tend to think of this pretty from a very naive and a rural perspective, because I belong to a rural kind of background in that sense. Actually, most of Northeast is still, okay, 70 years of independence, and we're still there. So, without that segue, the idea being that if you look at one of the most biggest success stories, probably is you can name me something which will give you employment, social equity, better infrastructure, mobilization of funds, and some level of accountability. Do you know anything that is of that nature in India or globally? That is done on a massive scale. Okay. So in my mind, the best example would be Narega, right? So that gives the you get obviously employment, and it is guaranteed employment. You have social equity, you create good infrastructure, roads, etc., etc. And probably that is the model which kind of looks like enormously scalable. But there has to be the market maker, basically the government of industries in between, right? So it takes money from the taxpayers, crowd-funded by taxpayers' money. Yes, it's crowd-funded by taxpayers' money, crowdsourced. So I see that as the bigger phenomenon. That is, in the microcosms of different districts, in different GPUs. GPUs meaning Gram Panchayat units and the Gram Sabhas, etc., which Osama was referring to. These are the systems that have already been in play, and we understand this, right? There's an incentive mechanism for the people to participate in. There is crowdsourcing that's happening. There's crowdfunding. We are creating infrastructure for the greater good, for a community. So I guess if that element can be, you can look at that and twist it into models which will fit into your own businesses or your own ideas, then you have enormous economy of scale. And that, I think, is the essence of the crowdfunding economy potential in India. The other problem that exists or is already on the horizon is automation, extreme automation. Artificial intelligence and robotics is going to kill most of labor all over the world. Right? Labor as in like physical manual labor. So the crowd of the future, is it going to be robotics or artificial intelligence, and devoid of human beings? So that is also one of the bigger questions to be asked. That is out there. The elephant in the room is for the crowd. So here we are referring only to the human crowd, right? So the bigger elephant in the room in terms of technological perspective, if you can use that optics and see it, is basically how will artificial intelligence and robotics disrupt the crowd. So that is something that probably people need to inculcate and think about also. And that probably there is a bigger play as well.
These are very good topics for the last panel of the day. The future of crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. Maybe crowdsourcing in the future will include robots, not just human beings. But Vinay, you want to add something on what you see as economic impact of your tools? Can you put ROI numbers? I don't know what you're doing.
Sure. Just a couple of quick points. So it's important that all the people who are participating in the crowdsourcing initiative sees a reward, right? So this includes also people who are helping us, on social media, part of the Facebook group who are sharing what we're doing. How can they be incentivized to share what you're doing? So that's important. So that's why at some of our, say, the pitch meetups and events that we do, it's all founder driven, but only when they see some incentive in what they're doing. They see that they can talk about their company, they can share what they're doing, they can also have the right kind of contacts and outreach. That's when people will participate. And that's something that I think we all should look at. How can we reward maximum number of people in every initiative that we're doing? So, a couple of points here.
May I add something here? Okay, I would see the economics from a slightly different point of view. Okay, I would see it as a startup. If I am running a startup, what is the economics? these days a lot of startups are just coming left, right and center, which are like aggregators, and they are basing their solutions besides a crowd and a customer, and they are just trying to marry the two. And they fizzle out after a certain point of time, and we are seeing a lot of them getting fizzled out. So for me, the economics, it's very important that there is a correct business model behind it. There is an extremely low entry barrier in a crowdsourcing business, because you have ready-made open source tools these days to start crowdsourcing, and you have a ready-made community links. You can use different ways in which you can build that community and start working on them. Now, what happens is once you start is you don't think much about the business behind it. What is the business model behind it? And I think it is very, very important that you have a clarity that crowdsourcing, whatever business you run, is based on a very strong people, process and technology. I think all three of them are very important components, even if you're doing simple crowdsourcing. When I say people, I mean, are you doing whatever work you want to do with the crowd with the right set of people? So are you profiling your crowd properly? Okay. Second is, are you using right set of tools to reach out to the people? And third is, how are you tying up your process? So where the payment mechanism comes in that process point. Are you incentivizing them correctly? Is money the only way? I mean, we were having a discussion just before that whether you pay them at one go or you pay them for everything they do, what is the way in which or is there any other way? Maybe money is not just the only thing. There may be career opportunities that you can do. Okay? And there are a lot of risk in this economics. One, because what you are trying to do with crowd is you are creating a huge freelance market. And now this market is freelance, so it is not well regulated because you don't have any job security. If people start moving from full-time jobs to this freelance kind of market, it can even spoil the economy because there is no regulation. These people might be kicked out. They may get money this month. They may not make money the next month. So all these things also have to be thought through when you are setting up any business, that there is a responsibility just like an employee. You have a responsibility in your organization that these are your employees and you have to take care of them. In the same way, whoever are your participants, like for example in Ola, the drivers, they become some kind of your contractors or your employees. So you have to take care of them. And then only the whole economy will work. I think that is one point that I wanted to make.
Very nice, thanks. One of the outcomes, by the way, of this conference is going to be a book about the theory behind crowds and success factors for entrepreneurs to get into the crowd model and so on. Thanks for reminding us that without a good business model, just starting off a crowd platform is not a recipe of success. How about you? What are some of your reactions on how people's reactions to tools of crowd?
Yeah, so economic value is already, established. People know it is working. Even if you look at an Oculus Rift that was acquired on Kickstarter, my two important questions here is, how do you treat this crowd? And that was something which Osama also in earlier session kind of hinted at. Now, you were creating economic value based on a model which taps into this crowd sourcing model, and it gets locked there. So how are you treating this crowd, and how are you so-called taking care of people who are involved on that platform? And if you have seen this movie called Chappie, I don't know if you've seen this movie called Chappie, it captures the whole artificial intelligence and robotics very well. Now, how do you treat an AI or a robot when it becomes this so-called crowd? The way that you treat crowd or human beings around you, is that how you're going to treat that AI robot? So I think the basic questions are questions of business ethics and morality for me, more than economic impact, because it is very much there. It's there for people to read. So that's not much of a bigger concern.
Okay. How many in the audience plan to launch a crowdfunding campaign in the near future? Just raise your hand. And how many of you plan to use crowdsourcing? Maybe crowdsourcing of content, crowdsourcing of inputs, feedback. Okay, that's most of the crowd. So maybe we should run through a few tips from each of you. Let's start with you. Maybe 3 tips. You mentioned one already. Business model should be solid. What are 3 tips for our friends in the audience to get into the crowd model of?
I'll probably again be repeating the same thing. I think first is to have a strong business model, as I said. Because what crowdsourcing will do is it will lead to price war, the game theory thing, right? That today you will bring in, say, 50 people in the crowd and start running a service at a lower cost than a conventional model. After a few years or after a few months, your competitor will start bringing a crowd at a slightly lower price. Eventually it will get commoditized and there is no margin, so the business model will not sustain. So sustainability will become a major issue. So it has to be very clear that how you create value. And if you create a value, you cannot be simply an aggregator and just try to marry crowd with the customers. You have to bring in some value, wherein I said there would be three things: people, process and technology. And you have to bring in all three of them. So crowd has to have some intelligence in terms of how it is built. Crowd is an organism. I mean, for me, I see crowd as a real organism. It cannot be otherwise it is just a population. You're just having, it has to be profiled. You need to know who are the people in your crowd that are working, who are not working, and you have to do a performance evaluation. So all these things you have to keep doing with your crowd if you're working with crowd on an ongoing basis. Second, as I said, was the technology part, and third, the process part. And process is also kind of tied down with so each of them is tied down. So technology, process, and people are all kind of integrated. Third, as I said, is it's very, very important that you take care of both sides. So generally what happens in any corporate or any business, you start only looking for your consumer or your customers. But like any organization, you take care of your employees, you have to take care of your crowd, because they are the ones who are delivering your business. And you have to make sure that they are happy and they keep coming back to you. Because as someone said in the previous session, that eventually what will happen, there are so many platforms and there will be so many businesses running on the similar concept. And so the crowd in the end will be the same. So it is the way you treat your crowd will lead people or the crowd people to come back to you again and again. And you have to make sure that the best in that crowd are coming back to you. And it will not be more than 5%, honestly. So I have a 30,000 crowd, but most of the time I work with those 2,000 people who are more trustworthy for me. And a big risk with crowd business is accountability. Security, of course, is there. You have to take care of security aspects in different ways, and only up to a certain level you can do security. But yes, accountability is something that you can definitely handle 100% based on how you set up your process and how you take care of your crowd.
So, yeah, I'm not an expert, I haven't built a crowdsourced business, but from what I have seen in successful people, I think the idea really matters. Crowdsourcing investments are mostly about your emotional or social, they are like social or emotional investment more than just money for people who are putting money in those ideas. The good example is in Karnataka, Kannada film industry, there was this movie called Julia that was all produced based on crowdsourcing, and he put out the script of the movie and asked people, potential viewers of the movie, to fund it if they like the script. So people who related with the script or felt emotionally or socially involved with it, they put money and it was a good success. So I think getting that connect right is very important. I feel.
Vinay, you have good tools for them, but what should they do other than tools?
Yeah, so I would just tell you that if you want to be in the crowdsourcing, crowdfunding space, you need to live that life. Those of you who want to start things, run a campaign very soon, I would suggest these three things. You should give before you ask. You should listen before you talk. And the final thing is, you also need to be that kind of a person. Have you lived in Airbnb for 2 years before actually starting something? Have you participated in a community initiative? Have you shared or done things together with people? So once you do that, it will come naturally. Crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, or whatever to do with the crowd. But until then, you have to keep engaging, getting outside the conventional way of doing things. So these are the three thoughts I have in mind.
So I think my take on this is basically that as a crowd, we've seen the Prime Minister talk about a demographic dividend. It's where better than to basically to have reap the benefits out of this demographic dividend other than in a country like India. However, having said that, just a quick straw poll is like, how many of you are from like tier 2, tier 3 cities here? Right, so we have 2. Probably if I go to my back to my origins, I'll from Sikkim, so I'll be the third one. And this is the problem with the crowd. The crowd is an urban crowd today. So when you're doing the Indian demographic, the Indian business, the Indian crowdsourcing, most of it will come to a halt and will or logger jam. And going back to even what he's suggesting is that same crowd will start proliferating into others. Like the cab drivers in the cities, obviously if Ola, he's got an Ola phone, he's got an Uber phone, he's got taxi phones, all the three phones he's got. So he will switch from each of these players. The reason for that is the crowd is also basically an urban phenomenon. And the reason for that again goes back to the language, right? So we have, you create an app, you create a website or whatever else that you need to create, even for, playmates, that app and stuff like that, it basically will percolate only down to that particular level, which is the urban crowd, English speaking crowd or English knowing crowd. It's very hard examples that you will find, that goes into tier 2, tier 3. So but the medium, the platform itself is agnostic, right? If you see the platform, the digital platform, as Osama was saying, is totally agnostic. In digital, you can do video, you can do voice. You have people use WhatsApp. Most of them don't text. I've seen because I'm from I'm in a rural place, so I know that people use WhatsApp there, but they use it to do voice or to do video, short videos and short voice, and they communicate. Even if you have no literacy, even if you don't know how to read and write, you still be able to do that. And probably that is the the dark area which needs to be lit up in terms of crowd, and especially with respect to India, that where we have the larger amount of crowd or our populace in the rural hubs and into the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So that's basically it.
Okay, good. I have one more question from the panel, and then we can take questions from the audience. How are we doing on time, by the way? Okay. Oh, no problem. Good. Okay, so one very interesting topic which came up in the other sessions after lunch is a lot of these crowd communities are online, but every once in a while you need to do something offline to actually get the crowd together and then do something. Is that an important tactic? Do you think you need to mix online and offline things together? Maybe it depends on each of your case studies, but does it make sense for you to bring your crowd together for an event or something of that sort?
So we have done that. We have done that. We did one session in Switzerland for crowd and one in Bangalore. We did sessions. Honestly, I didn't find much advantage of it because in the end, these people want to stay remote. So the events that we did not lead to too much of advantage for us in any way. I mean, that's my feeling, but I don't know how others.
Yeah, I think village were very different.
Yeah, I think for us it worked really well, the offline component, because I think there comes the cultural thing, Western cultures and Eastern cultures. In Eastern cultures, they probably need to see your face to trust you, and they want to be there at places where you are, and then you can take things forward. Unlike the Kickstarters and Indiegogos, where you just find something online and you start supporting it because you like it. Here they need to know the people behind different activities. So our kind of crowd pitch offline meetups have worked out really well.
You've done some hybrid ones also, no? Half online, half...
Yeah, so we're trying new ones as well, where we have people at events who can validate ideas, people online who can validate things, and even a panel who can validate things. So yeah, a hybrid thing.
So Karma, for you also these things could work. In fact, you can do multiple events in many cities in India for some of your products.
Absolutely. For a product to market fit, basically there is that you need to have some kind of offline, because the irony is if you're talking about the crowd and if you can't engage them offline, then at some level, I mean, it doesn't have to be at a level where you're calling a town hall at every city, but probably at some level, some kind of hybrid meetup or something like that, mixer. It's always good. Any social currency to any platform or any business is always good, because you are creating ready brand ambassadors, ready advocates for your brand or for your product when you have these mixers and meetups. I think that is what he'll testify with, right? So that creates that instant, champions for your product or your brand. And that's a huge plus. So anybody in crowdsourcing that wants to set up anything new or is going to approach this particular venue, I think one of the things that you should do is probably a mix of an online and an offline. An offline mixer is also necessary. We've seen the power of offline. So.